The void was emptier than any Cathari mind could comprehend. Stars blinked weakly through clouds of ionized gas, distant suns that seemed almost afraid to shine across the shattered remnants of what had once been a vibrant sector. The Cathari armada moved silently between debris fields, the only sound the low hum of the engines and the occasional crackle from failing sensor arrays. They had hunted the Lithari raiders for weeks, tracing the trail of destruction across abandoned worlds, through decimated colonies and shattered orbital platforms. Each system they entered was either burned, consumed, or abandoned. Morale among the Cathari officers was fragile. Ships had been patched together from scavenged wreckage, weapon systems scavenged from old battlefields, hulls reinforced with alloy strips that had survived only because the Cathari were expert engineers, but even the finest engineering could not cover the fear in the hearts of the fleet. Supplies were dangerously low. The crew, exhausted and worn thin, whispered about mutiny and disaster. Aid had never arrived. It was a cruel universe, impartial and unfeeling. Commander Varric stood alone on the bridge of the stalwart Resolve, the flagship of the Armada, staring into the darkness beyond the viewport. His eyes were fixed on the nebula ahead, a swirling cloud of blackened gas and frozen particles that hid the ruin of a recently destroyed colony. The colony had called for help weeks ago. Nothing had arrived. Families, soldiers, civilians, all gone. He felt the emptiness pressing against his chest, the kind of quiet that gnawed at the mind until the smallest sound became terrifying. "Commander," Lieutenant Real's voice came over the comm panel, low and tense. "I'm picking up something. Sensors are detecting an anomaly beyond normal parameters." Varric did not respond immediately. He watched, waiting. There was nothing to see, just blackness. But the Cathari had learned to trust the subtle whispers of the void. Often, the difference between life and death was in noticing the imperceptible movements of energy, shadows shifting where no ship should be, distortions in the cosmic radiation that could indicate life or death. Real continued, "It's massive, not a vessel as we know it. The energy readings are stabilized, but entirely unnatural. No propulsion. No emissions consistent with known technology. Commander, it's unlike anything catalogued." The crew stiffened. The Cathari were no strangers to strange phenomena, nebula storms, rogue black holes, derelict fleets, but this was different. The energy signature was immense, deliberate, intelligent. And then the void itself shifted. At first, it was subtle. A ripple, as if the fabric of space were a sheet, and something massive had stepped onto it. Then the anomaly resolved into shape. One at first, then two, then a line of shapes moving together with terrifying grace. The Cathari fleet tensed as the first ship emerged fully from the void. It rotated slowly, revealing sleek angular plating that shimmered faintly, reflecting starlight like liquid metal. The hull was enormous, bigger than any dreadnought the Cathari had ever built, yet balanced with an elegance that suggested it had been forged in worlds far more hostile than this sector. The Cathari officers were frozen, a collective paralysis that spread through the bridge of every ship. The anomaly's sheer presence radiated authority, discipline, and the quiet menace of something not to be trifled with. Every sensor aboard every ship struggled to reconcile the data. Nothing they knew could account for this vessel. Then a voice came through comms, clear, calm, unwavering. "This is Captain Alethea Grayson of the United Terran Vanguard. Identify yourselves immediately and explain your purpose before I assume hostile intent." Silence followed. The Cathari had expected nothing, certainly not a response, certainly not one so immediate, so unyielding. Aid had arrived, but it was not what they had imagined. It was not diplomats, nor mercenaries, nor neutral observers. This was a warship, and humans, the legend said, were unlike any other species. They were forged by worlds that sought to kill them every day, tempered in environments designed to crush life, yet adaptable, cunning, and utterly relentless. Varric's claws clenched on the railing as he stepped forward. "Admiral," his voice shook despite years of experience, "we are the Cathari Armada. Our fleet has hunted the Lithari across this sector for months. We are outnumbered, outmatched, and on the brink of annihilation. We require assistance. That is our purpose, and that is our position." The human ship remained in orbit, massive and impossibly still, rotating slowly as though considering the Cathari. It was not idle, nor was it passive. It radiated awareness, a presence that dwarfed every ship in the Armada. The hangars along its hull opened with deliberate precision, releasing dropships, fighters, and gunships into formation. The human vessels moved like a single organism, a predator emerging from the shadows, forming a protective screen around the Cathari fleet. Varric exhaled shakily. He had expected nothing, not salvation, not intervention. And yet here it was, a human warship, the first of its kind in this sector, hovering over the fleet like a god of war. The legends had been true. A low murmur passed through the bridge crew. They are gods of war," Rael whispered, awe and fear mixing in his tone. "And yet they fight for us." Varric's eyes narrowed as he watched the human ship glide through the void, weapons primed, engines humming with restrained power. "No," he said quietly, more to himself than anyone else. "They are humans, Deathworlders. The legends are true. They survive when nothing else does, and they fight to protect." The void was no longer silent. It thrummed with the presence of the unknown, the unstoppable, and the unimaginable. The Cathari realized then that the universe had shifted in an instant. Their expectation of isolation, of abandonment, had been shattered by a species that arrived from nothing, emerged from the darkness, and radiated authority, capability, and mercy all at once. And in that moment, every Cathari officer knew one truth: aid had arrived. Aid the likes of which no one could have anticipated. From the void, a human warship had risen, and the galaxy would never be the same. The horizon breaker hovered above the Cathari fleet, its dark, iridescent hull rotating slowly as if it were taking measure of everything in the void. Hangars along its flanks opened with mechanical elegance, releasing swarms of smaller craft. Sleek gunships, fighters, and dropships, all moving with synchronized precision. The formation was breathtaking, no hesitation, no misfire, no wasted movement. Every vessel knew its place, every pilot its role, and the coordination radiated lethal efficiency. Varric's claws tightened on the railing of the stalwart resolve. The fleet had seen many strange things, but nothing like this. It was one thing to read about humans in legends, whispered tales from distant traders, stories of a species forged on worlds where gravity could crush bone, radiation could burn flesh, and every predator on the planet wanted them dead. It was another entirely to see them, to feel their presence. "Admiral," Varric said over the comms, voice steady, though his insides trembled. "We are the Cathari Armada. We are engaged, outnumbered, and overwhelmed by Lithari raiders. We request immediate assistance. That is our position. That is our purpose." The response came, measured, calm, and precise. "You have been observed," Captain Alethea Grayson's voice resonated across every comm channel. "Do not engage hostiles. Remain stationary. Terran deployment units will neutralize all threats. Comply or be considered hostile." The Cathari shuddered under the weight of her words. Aid had arrived, yes, but not in any form they had imagined. They had expected transport ships, diplomats, perhaps mercenaries for hire. Not a warship of impossible scale, bristling with weapons and dropping squads of soldiers into space, like predators releasing cubs into a hunting ground. And then the first wave struck. The Lithari had been lying in ambush, confident that the Cathari were vulnerable. Massive organic tendrils shot from their ships, striking out at the fleet with vicious speed, twisting metal and tearing living vessels apart. Screeches of psychic resonance filled the void, a sound so alien it made the hulls vibrate. But the humans did not flinch. Gunships streaked from the horizon breaker, darting through the void like metallic predators, weaving between tendrils and energy lances. Every shot counted. Every strike hit with surgical precision, cutting Lithari ships into pieces before they could harm a single Cathari vessel. Dropships deployed Marines in armored exosuits that descended with perfect timing, weapons primed, ready to meet titans of the Lithari fleet. A Cathari officer gasped, jaw dropping. They fight for us." Varric's eyes narrowed as he observed the humans in action. "Not for us," he corrected, voice quiet. "For the universe. For survival. They do not negotiate. They do not bargain. They fight because it is what they are: humans. Deathworlders. The legends are true." The horizon breaker rotated slowly, its main cannon charging with a hum that resonated across the void. Its presence alone altered the battlefield, forcing the Lithari to hesitate, unsure how to respond to a force beyond their comprehension. Every weapon system was active, every sensor scanning for anomalies. Lithari could feel it. This was not merely a warship. It was a demonstration of what humans were capable of, an unspoken warning to any who would dare threaten life in its path. The void was alive with energy, and the Cathari fleet, for the first time in weeks, breathed a collective sigh of cautious hope. Aid had arrived, not as expected, not as imagined, but arrived nonetheless. And the battle was only beginning. The calm of the void shattered with a surge of organic violence. From the shadowed edges of the nebula, the Lithari emerged in a writhing wave of black biomass and pulsating hulls. Ships rippled with strange, living textures, their surfaces slick and glossy, adorned with spines and writhing tendrils that moved as though with a will of their own. Psychic screams echoed through space, a chorus of malice that rattled the hulls of the Cathari fleet and made even seasoned officers recoil. The Lithari raiders struck with terrifying coordination. Tendrils tore through the vacuum, slicing at shields and hulls alike. Energy lances flared, striking ships with precision that suggested they had predicted every human movement before it happened. The Cathari fleet, despite all their experience, trembled. The swarm was everything the legends had said: virile, intelligent, merciless. And then the humans moved. Gunships erupted from the horizon breaker, streaking through the void like streaks of starlight, weaving between tendrils and energy blasts with impossible grace. Rail cannons fired, sending shells faster than the eye could track, slicing through the organic hulls of the Lithari ships. Plasma lances lanced through clusters of the swarm fleet, evaporating entire vessels in moments. Dropships descended in precise arcs, releasing Marines in exosuits that bristled with energy weapons. One Lithari Titan, massive beyond comprehension, charged the Cathari fleet, its limbs smashing through debris and smaller ships with ease. A lone human Marine stepped forward, weapon braced. The Titan shrieked, psychic fury rolling off it in waves. But the Marine did not falter. She fired. Her weapon seared through sinew and armor alike. The Titan crashed to the nebula floor in a shower of fire and black biomass. Another Titan advanced. Another Marine met it. Another Titan fell. Varric's jaw dropped. Every officer on his bridge whispered in awe. They had expected desperation. Perhaps a few skilled soldiers, but not this. Humans were not merely surviving. They were predators honed by worlds where only the strongest endured. "Observe," Varric said quietly, claws tightening around the railing. "This is why they are feared. This is the power of the Deathworlders." The horizon breaker rotated smoothly, scanning for additional threats. Sensors probed the nebula, picking apart the Lithari formation, mapping weaknesses and predicting movements. Every strike was deliberate, every action measured, every human unit working in perfect coordination with the others. The Cathari watched, awestruck, as the humans demonstrated an understanding of war that went beyond tactics. It was instinct, honed by survival on planets where the environment itself was a predator. The Lithari fleet, confident in vicious moments before, began to falter. Swarms that had overrun worlds without effort were now being cut down systematically. Ships evaporated before they could strike. Titans fell under precise fire, and the void, once dominated by darkness and malice, was now lit with the lethal precision of human weaponry. Varric whispered to his second-in-command, barely audible. "We expected nothing, and yet they came." The humans did not pause, did not hesitate. They fought with efficiency and calm determination. The Cathari fleet, once on the brink of despair, realized a new truth in the heart of the battle. The humans had arrived not merely to aid, but to dominate the battlefield, to ensure survival by force of will and skill. The Lithari would learn, in moments that felt like eternity, that the legends were not exaggerations. Humans did not merely survive death, they wielded it, mastered it, and turned it against their enemies. And the Armada knew, in that instant, that they would never look at the void the same way again. The void erupted into chaos, a maelstrom of fire, psychic screams, and the relentless precision of human warfare. The Lithari, confident in their numbers, swarmed the Cathari fleet like a black tide. Massive tendrils tore through the debris, smashing smaller vessels and shredding shields with brutal efficiency. Titans, towering and muscular, stomped across the remnants of derelict platforms, their shrieks echoing across space. The Cathari could only hold formation, praying that their defenses would hold long enough for the humans to act. And then the humans struck. Gunships darted through the void, weaving with impossible agility, each vessel an extension of the horizon breaker's intent. Rail cannons fired in unison, cutting massive corridors through the Lithari swarm. Plasma lances lanced across clusters of enemy ships, vaporizing them in brilliant bursts. Dropships deployed Marines in exacting arcs, exosuits bristling with energy weapons and kinetic shields. Every movement was synchronized, a deadly choreography perfected by centuries of survival on worlds that could kill the unwary with a single mistake. A Lithari Titan lunged toward the Cathari flagship. Its massive limbs crushed smaller ships in seconds. One human Marine met it, without hesitation, firing a weapon that ripped through sinew and bone. Titan screamed, staggering, then fell in a deafening crash. Another Titan advanced. Another Marine fired. Another Titan fell. The horizon breaker rotated, engines flaring, weapon arrays aligning. Its main cannon charged, humming like a dying star, focused energy radiating from the massive hull. "Target primary cluster," Captain Grayson ordered. A single discharge of concentrated energy erupted from the ship, vaporizing half the Lithari fleet in an instant. Shockwaves flattened space debris and rocked the remaining ships, leaving trails of destruction in a void that had once felt infinite and empty. And yet, the humans did not pause. Gunships continued their dance. Marines swept through the debris, and the remaining Lithari were hunted systematically. Each move was deliberate, lethal, and unrelenting. The Cathari could do nothing but watch, awestruck, as their myths, the legends of Deathworlders, unfolded in front of them. 14 minutes. 14 minutes of unrelenting, surgical destruction. The Lithari fleet, which had devoured 12 worlds before, now lay in ruins. Not a single Terran vessel had fallen. Not a single Marine had faltered. The humans had arrived from the void, and the tide of battle had shifted irrevocably. Varric exhaled, claws trembling. "We expected nothing, and they came." Grayson's voice rang over the comms, calm and precise. "We did not come for glory. You summoned humans, not soldiers. Humans do not ignore a call for help." The Cathari realized, in that instant, the terrifying perfection of the species before them. They were not merely survivors. They were predators honed by worlds that would kill any weaker creature, tempered in death itself, and yet capable of mercy and protection. When humans arrived, the void itself remembered, and the universe, for 14 minutes, witnessed what it meant to face Deathworlders unleashed. Silence settled over the battlefield, a fragile and trembling quiet after the storm of destruction. Smoke rose from the smoldering husks of Lithari ships, curling like black ribbons into the void. Debris drifted slowly, the shattered remnants of what had once been a fearsome armada, now floating as twisted silhouettes against distant stars. The Cathari fleet, battered but alive, trembled as their sensors scanned for signs of further threats. There were none. The humans had done more than fight. They had eradicated the danger with a precision and efficiency that left the Cathari stunned. Above them, the horizon breaker remained suspended, silent and imposing. Its hull glimmered faintly. Light refracted through the void in a way that suggested not just technology, but intent. The hangars retracted, the fighter wings folded neatly along the sides, and the massive cannon on its prow powered down. Though the ship's presence alone radiated authority, it was a monument to the human will, unyielding, disciplined, and absolute. Varric stepped forward, claws trembling, voice barely above a whisper. "Admiral, we cannot repay you. We summoned champions, but what arrived was beyond anything we imagined. The legends, the myths, they are true." Grayson's voice cut across the comms, calm and resolute. "We are humans, Deathworlders. We survive when nothing else does. We fight to protect, not to conquer. Remember that." The Cathari had always regarded humans with a mixture of awe and fear. They were said to be impossible to kill, forged on worlds that demanded perfection and capable of feats no other species could endure. But the legends had never captured the scale, the certainty, the relentless nature of their survival and skill. The humans did not simply survive, They dominated. And yet, despite their terrifying power, they exercised restraint and judgment. "Sir Varric's second in command," Ryal whispered. "Still staring at the massive ship, they are gods, but they are not cruel." "No," Varric replied, voice heavy with newfound respect. "They are humans, Deathworlders. And what we witness today is why the galaxy fears and reveres them in equal measure." The horizon breaker began to move slowly, engines flaring as it rose above the fleet, then pivoted toward the void. Its gunships and fighters returned to formation. Marines climbed aboard their dropships, and the vessel prepared to vanish as mysteriously as it had arrived. Yet every Cathari knew they would never forget this moment. Grayson's final message came over the comms, calm, precise, and unforgettable. "We act when called. We fight when needed. The universe will remember today, not because we seek glory, but because we do not ignore those in need. Survive, adapt, and respect the strength of others. Humanity has arrived." The fleet watched as the human warship and its escort slipped back into the darkness of the void, leaving only the echoes of its presence behind. The Cathari armada, once isolated and desperate, now understood the truth. When humans intervened, they did so with absolute authority, unrelenting skill, and a terrifying yet just power. And from that day forward, the Cathari whispered it across the stars. No one expected aid. No one imagined its form. And no one who faced humans and survived ever doubted the legends again. The void was quiet once more, but now it was a quiet that trembled with respect, fear, and the knowledge that the galaxy had witnessed something truly unstoppable. Humanity had risen from the void, and the universe would never forget.